Welcome back to Treasures from the Purans, a treasure chest of fascinating stories from the Puran genre of Indian literature. Today I invite you to listen to the story of King Parikshit and the snake Takshak. The long battle of Mahabharat, fought between the cousins Pandavas and Kauravas, was long since over. And Kunti's great-grandson and Arjun's grandson, Parikshit, was now the king of Hastinapur. He was a kind and able king, and his subjects were prosperous and happy. One day, King Parikshit went hunting in the forest and shot a deer. But the deer bolted, and Parikshit pursued it. The search proved futile, and the king, separated from the people accompanying him, became quite thirsty, hungry, and fatigued. Wandering in search of water, he came upon a hermitage where a sage was sitting in meditation. Parikshit bowed before him and asked him where he could find some water. The sage was deep in meditation, so he did not respond, even when the king repeated his question a few times. The angry king saw a dead snake lying nearby, and picking it up with the end of his bow, draped it around the sage's neck and left. The sage remained unperturbed. A while later, his son Shringi returned and was furious to see the dead snake around his father's neck. He declared, "May the person who has done this be bitten by the great snake Takshak and die within a week from today." When Parikshit heard of the curse, he called his learned ministers. "I know what I did was wrong, and death from a curse like this is inevitable. But I want you to try your best to thwart it. There must be a way out of this. I remember hearing the story of the sage who gave away half his life to his wife to make her come alive. Who was this sage, O king, and how did his wife die?" asked a minister. "The sage was Ruru, the son of Pratapi and Pramati," said the king. "The story goes that the celestial nymph Menaka had a child by the Gandharva Vishwavasu, who she met on the banks of a river. Later, she gave birth to a beautiful girl in the hermitage of sage Sthulakesh, which was also along the river bank. The same river bank. The sage brought her up and named her Pramadvara. She grew up into a beautiful young woman, and once when sage Ruru saw her, he fell madly in love with her. Their wedding was arranged, and both Pramati and Sthulkesh started preparing for it. Meanwhile, one day, Pramadvara was playing in the courtyard when her foot accidentally fell on a poisonous snake, which bit her, and she died immediately. Both households were plunged in sorrow. Ruru was inconsolable. "Ah, my beloved has been snatched away from me. I don't want to live without her," wailed Ruru. He thought of committing suicide, but then decided not to, as it would have caused immense grief to his parents and would not have brought back Pramadvara. Standing by the river, he closed his eyes and prayed fervently. "If I have always worshipped with a pure heart and performed my duties towards my guru, my parents, and everyone else with devotion and dedication, then please let my love come back to life." Eventually, at the behest of the Devas, the god of death Yamraj said. Pramadvara's life is over. The only way she can come alive is if I give half of Ruru's life to her. And so it was that Pramadvara came alive and she and Ruru were married. So, O ministers, said Parikshit, please try all means and find a way to save me with herbs, gems, spells, or anything else. A 7-story building was quickly erected. Its entrance on the ground was so heavily guarded that it was said even air couldn't get in without permission. Parikshit moved into the top floor of the building and stayed there, praying and counting the days. Everyone in his kingdom came to know of the king's impending death. In one corner of his kingdom lived a poor Brahmin called Kashyap, who was well versed in all kinds of mantras or spells. He thought he would be abundantly awarded if he were to go and rid the king of the snake's poison after he was bitten. So he set out from home. Meanwhile, the serpent king Takshak too assumed the form of an ascetic and headed to Hastinapur to do his duty according to the curse. He met Kashyap on the way and asked where he was headed in such a hurry. Kashyap told him the purpose of his journey. I know a powerful spell that can destroy the effect of the poison, he said. If the duration of life assigned to the king is not exhausted, I can bring him back to life. Takshak then said, O Brahmin, I am Takshak, and my bite will certainly kill him, and you won't be able to do anything about it. The power of my mantra will definitely make him come alive, said Kashyap. Well, show me the power of your mantra then, said Takshak. I am going to bite this Nyagrodh tree before us. Let's see if you can make it come alive. So saying, Takshak bit the tree, which was reduced to ashes before their eyes. Kashyap now collected the ashes and said, Behold the power of my mantra now. Taking some water in his hand, Kashyap recited the mantra and then sprinkled it on the pile of ashes. To Takshak's astonishment, the tree grew back, limb by limb and leaf by leaf. O learned one, said Takshak, what is your objective in saving the king? Tell me, and I will fulfill your desire. O king of serpents, replied Kashyap, in return for saving his life, the king would give me abundant wealth. I will give you all the wealth you want, said Takshak. Take it and go back home and let me continue with what I have to do. Kashyap started thinking, if I take what Takshak is offering and return home, I will miss out on attaining fame as someone who saved the king's life. But if I refuse and help the king instead, undying fame, abundant wealth, and the greatest punya or karmic merit would be mine. Also, if the king's life is saved, it would be good for the kingdom and its people too. Thinking thus, he went into deep meditation, and in that state came to know that the duration of the king's life was nearly up, and his death was imminent in any case. Equipped with this knowledge, he decided to accept Takshak's offer and returned home a rich man. Takshak now reached Hastinapur and found out how the king had barricaded himself in a 7-story tower. He became anxious because he too was bound by the curse to play his role in it and didn't want to invite the sage's son's ire for failing to do so. This foolish king sits in this tall tower, thought Takshak, when he should be doing charity and accruing merit, as it's only by such acts that there is a chance of one's life being prolonged. Or he should just calmly accept death and wait for it. Takshak called upon other snakes and asked them to change their forms to ascetics too. He had them carry baskets of fruits for the king. He himself changed into a tiny insect and entered one of the fruits. When the snakes, in the form of ascetics, reached Parikshit's tower, the guards there stopped them. "We have been performing sacrifices to prolong the life of our king," said the ascetics. "We want to sprinkle some holy water empowered by our chants on him. So we will just meet him briefly and leave. Please allow us to do so." The guards said, "Please come back tomorrow, as we cannot allow anyone to meet the king before that, because of the curse." The ascetics then requested that the baskets of fruits be taken up to the king, and handing them to the guards, left. The guards took the baskets up and offered them to the king. "Take these fruits and distribute them," said the king to his ministers. "I will only keep this one fruit to eat." So saying, he picked up just one fruit, which was the one in which Takshak hid as a tiny worm. The king cut the fruit and saw within it a very fine copper-colored black-eyed worm. "The sun is setting, so there is no fear of my death today," said the king as he picked out the insect. In an instant, the worm transformed into the massive Takshak, who coiled tightly around the king and bared his fangs. The terrified ministers and attendants fled shrieking from the chamber. Terribly venomous fumes emerged from Takshak's mouth, and the instant his fangs sank into Parikshit's neck, the king's lifeless body dropped to the ground.